The Warband's ship, Bloodfang, hovered above the scorched desert world, its engines roaring like a hungry beast. Winds howled through the canyons below, kicking up spirals of sand that lashed against the metallic hull. The slavers had spent days combing the surface, their patience wearing thin, their tempers flaring. This was supposed to be a simple hunt, quick, clean, and profitable. Instead, it had dragged into a grueling, frustrating ordeal. Now, finally, they had something to show for it. Jula, the Vulcan captain, watched as his crew dragged the latest catch up the boarding ramp. His thick, reptilian lips curled into a sneer. A human. The Terran's body was covered in dust, his skin cracked and raw from the relentless sun. His tattered combat fatigues clung to his gaunt frame, dark with sweat and grime. A deep gash ran along his forehead, the blood dried into a rust-colored stain. He was barely conscious, his steps sluggish, his breathing shallow. Jula had seen plenty of humans before, most of them weak, desperate, prey. This one was no different. But his pet? That was another matter entirely. The beast moved in eerie silence, walking beside the human without resistance, its paws sinking into the sand without a sound. Its fur was dark as the void, thick and matted from months, maybe years, of survival in the wild. Muscles rippled beneath its skin with every step, lean and powerful. But what unsettled Jula most were its eyes. They glowed a sickly, piercing yellow, sharp and focused, radiating something he could only describe as awareness. Not the vacant gaze of a common animal, nor the instinctual wariness of a wild predator. No, this creature was watching them. Studying them. Jula didn't like that. Behind him, one of his lieutenants, a hulking reptilian brute named Korth, prodded the beast with the barrel of his plasma rifle. "What is that thing?" he muttered. Jula scoffed. "A Terran animal. A pet. Useless." Korth snorted. "Doesn't look useless to me." The beast didn't growl. Didn't snap. It simply turned its head toward Korth, slowly, locking eyes with the slaver. Korth flinched. He quickly covered it by baring his sharp fangs, jabbing the rifle into the beast's ribs. "Move, mutt." The creature complied, stepping forward without hesitation, but its eyes never left Korth. That stare sent a ripple of unease through the gathered slavers. Jula growled in irritation. He was letting his crew's paranoia get to him. It was just a damn dog. He turned his attention to the human, stepping closer. "You've got nothing to say, Terran?" His voice was mocking, deep and guttural. The human didn't respond. His cracked lips parted slightly, but no words came. Jula's sneer widened. Barely alive. Probably cooked his brain in the heat. Pathetic. The slaver captain grabbed the human by the chin, tilting his head up, forcing him to meet his eyes. That was when Jula noticed something odd. Despite his ruined state, despite the exhaustion lining every muscle, the human smirked. A ghost of a smile, weak but unmistakable. "You're all dead," the human whispered. His voice was hoarse, barely more than a breath. Jula blinked. Then he threw back his head and laughed. His crew joined in, the sound of their amusement echoing through the ship's hull. "He thinks he's dangerous." Korth barked. "Delusional." Jula grinned, shaking his head. "We'll see how much fight he's got left after a few days in the cages." He shoved the human backward. The Terran stumbled, barely keeping himself upright as the slavers forced him forward, marching him up the loading ramp. His beast followed, still silent, still watching. Jula let out a breath, the last remnants of unease fading. Another easy haul. Another payday. He didn't see the way the human flexed his fingers behind his back. He didn't notice the tension in his shoulders, the steady, measured breathing. Jula had no idea that he had just invited death aboard his ship. The cargo hold. The cages were lined up in rows, each one filled with creatures from across the galaxy. Some were massive, thrashing and snarling, their scales scraping against the metal bars. Others were small and feeble, chittering in fear. The human was thrown into one of the empty cells, landing hard on his side. He grunted but didn't cry out. The beast stepped inside after him, moving gracefully despite its size. Jula activated the containment field with a flick of his wrist. A shimmering blue energy barrier sealed them in. No lock. No physical door. Just pure force. The slaver captain smirked. "Good luck breaking out of that, Terran." The human sat up, resting his back against the cold metal wall. Slowly, deliberately, he wiped the blood from his forehead. His beast lay down beside him, resting its massive head on its paws. Jula studied them for a moment longer, then turned on his heel. Not worth worrying about. As he strode away, he signaled to his crew. Get us off this rock. We'll be at the slave markets of Exharath in 3 rotations. Let's see if anyone wants a half-dead Terran in his mutt. The ship rumbled beneath their feet as the engines roared to life. The Bloodfang lifted off, ascending into the swirling storm of sand before punching through the atmosphere, leaving the barren wasteland behind. The warning. Hours passed. The ship cruised through the void, a predator gliding silently through the dark. The cargo hold was quiet, save for the distant hum of the ship's systems. The other captives shifted in their cages, their eyes darting toward the human and his beast. They had all seen it. The way the creature moved. The way it waited. One of the prisoners, a wiry alien with deep crimson skin, pressed his face against the bars of his cage. His voice was barely above a whisper. Human, he rasped. That animal, what is it? The human exhaled slowly, rolling his shoulders. Not an animal. The crimson-skinned alien hesitated. Then what? The human's lips curled into something that wasn't quite a smile. A weapon. The beast's yellow eyes gleamed. Jula's confidence. On the bridge, Jula reclined in his seat, staring at the holographic projection of their course. Everything was going smoothly. No pursuit. No issues. A perfect hunt. Varric, his second-in-command, approached. Captain, he said, his voice uncertain. Jula arched a brow. What? Varric shifted uncomfortably. That human. Something feels wrong. Jula chuckled. Afraid of a half-dead Terran? It's not him, Varric admitted. It's the creature. It hasn't made a sound. No distress. No growling. Not even when we threw it in the cage. That's not normal. Jula scoffed. It's broken. Probably domesticated beyond repair. Nothing but a big, dumb mutt. Varric wasn't convinced. His fingers hovered over his datapad. Maybe we should space them. Not worth the risk. Jula rolled his eyes. If it makes you feel better, post a guard outside the cargo hold. We'll skin the thing when we get to port. Varric nodded but still looked uneasy. Jula turned back to his holo display. He didn't notice the security camera flickering. Didn't see the shadow moving in the cargo hold. Didn't hear the faintest whisper of a low, steady growl. Somewhere in the dark, something shifted. The hunt was about to begin. The Bloodfang drifted through the endless void, its engines humming a steady rhythm. The slaver warband aboard celebrated their recent capture, drinking and brawling in the dimly lit corridors. Their arrogance was palpable, their guard slipping with every passing hour. Deep in the belly of the ship, however, something stirred. Something that did not belong in a cage. The watchful beast. The cargo hold was a cavernous, metallic tomb of misery. The other prisoners, some once proud warriors, others mere victims of fate, watched with wide, fearful eyes as the human sat unmoving. His beast, lying at his side, had not shifted in hours. The air was thick with unease. The crimson-skinned alien, the one who had dared to whisper a question earlier, swallowed hard before speaking again. You called it a weapon. His voice trembled. What did you mean? The human, still leaning against the wall, let out a slow breath. He didn't look at the alien, but his words carried a weight that sent chills through the other captives. Most of you have seen predators. He tilted his head toward the cages. Fangs, claws, instincts honed over generations. The beast's yellow eyes flickered in the dim light. But some creatures are different, the human continued, his voice eerily calm. They don't just kill. They understand. He finally turned his head, his gaze locking onto the aliens. This isn't a pet. It isn't a simple beast. It's something that should never have been locked in here with you. The alien's throat bobbed as he swallowed. Why? The human smiled. A slow, knowing smile. Because the cage isn't for him. It's for them. A quiet thud echoed through the hold. A heartbeat later, the lights flickered. The first mistake. Jula sat in the command chair, watching the display of the ship's systems. Everything was nominal. The cargo was secured. The human was locked up. The beast, while unsettling, was contained. He leaned back, smug in his triumph. Then the lights flickered again. The bridge crew exchanged uneasy glances. Power surge? Varric asked, tapping at his console. Jula frowned. The ship's reactor was steady. No reported failures. But something felt off. Send a patrol to check the lower decks, he ordered. I don't want any surprises. The shadow moves. Down in the bowels of the ship, 2 slavers armed with plasma rifles moved through the dimly lit corridors. The air was stale, the hum of the ship's systems a constant presence. They reached the cargo hold's entrance. The energy barrier sealing the prisoners inside crackled softly, still active. One of the slavers, a grizzled veteran named Drek, peered through the bars at the human. "Hey, Terran," he growled. "You do anything down here?" The human didn't answer. His eyes were closed, his breathing slow. Drek scowled. "I'm talking to you." His partner nudged him. "Why are you wasting your time?" The lights went out. Darkness swallowed the corridor. Then came the first scream. Not from the human. Not from the prisoners. From somewhere else. Drek whipped his rifle around, his eyes darting through the pitch-black hallway. His fingers clenched the trigger, sweat trickling down his scaly skin. What the hell? A wet crunch cut him off. His partner, standing beside him just moments ago, was gone. Drek's breathing hitched. His rifle trembled in his hands. Then he felt something breathing behind him. A guttural, inhuman growl. Drek spun around and fired. The plasma shot illuminated the hallway for less than a second, just long enough for him to see a flash of yellow eyes and a silhouette of something massive lunging for him. Then the lights returned, flickering weakly. Drek's rifle clattered to the floor, slick with blood. The slaver's body was missing its head. The alarm sounds. A shrill klaxon erupted throughout the ship, cutting through the revelry on the upper decks. Jula and his crew tensed as red warning lights bathed the bridge in a hellish glow. "Report." Jula barked. Varric's fingers flew across the console. "Power fluctuations in the lower decks. We've lost contact with the patrol squad." Jula's stomach twisted. He slammed his fist against the armrest. "Get a full security team down there, now." The bridge crew scrambled to obey. But deep inside, Jula knew something was wrong. The cages open. Back in the cargo hold, the human lifted his head as the energy field surrounding his cage flickered. The barrier crackled, then suddenly collapsed, leaving the entrance open. The prisoners held their breath. The beast stood up. The human rolled his shoulders, stretching as if he had all the time in the world. Then he stepped forward, out of the cage. The crimson-skinned alien shuddered. How did you do that?" The human smirked. "I didn't." The beast had. Somehow, some way, the creature had manipulated the ship's systems. But that wasn't the most terrifying part. The terrifying part was that the hunting hadn't even started yet. The slaughter begins. The security team, 8 heavily armed slavers, moved in formation as they entered the lower decks. Their rifles were raised, fingers tense on the triggers. The walls were smeared with blood. Chunks of flesh littered the floor. Bones had been stripped clean, gnawed down to jagged edges. One of the slavers gagged. "What the hell?" A snarl came from behind them. The last man in the formation barely had time to turn before something grabbed him, wrenching him into the darkness. He disappeared with a sickening rip. Panic erupted. The remaining slavers fired wildly into the shadows. Plasma bolts lit up the corridor, but they hit nothing. Then, it moved. A black blur, faster than the eye could follow, weaved through the chaos. One slaver screamed as claws tore through his chest, splattering blood against the walls. Another tried to run, but something ripped his legs out from under him, dragging him into the dark. Jula's voice crackled through their comms. "Report. What's happening down there?" A single voice came through, sobbing. "It's not an animal. It's..." A deafening crunch. The line went dead. Jula's claws dug into his chair. His crew looked at him, horror dawning in their eyes. Something was hunting them. The hunter revealed. As the slavers on the bridge scrambled to react, the ship's internal cameras flickered on. Jula turned to the screen, just in time to see a live feed from the lower decks. The image was blurry, the lighting dim. But the scene was unmistakable. Bodies. Torn apart, shredded like paper. Blood pooling on the floor. And in the middle of it stood the beast. Not just a creature. Not just a pet. A monster. Its fur was drenched in crimson. Its fangs glistened, its eyes burning like molten gold. It looked directly into the camera. And smirked. Jula's blood ran cold. The human's voice came through the speakers, whispering one final warning. "Now, we hunt." The blood fang had become a tomb. The once lively corridors, filled with drunken laughter and the stomping of overconfident slavers, now echoed only with the distant, chilling sounds of something hunting. Jula sat stiffly in his command chair, his mind racing. The lower decks had gone silent, no reports, no response from his security team. Just silence. And the cameras. Every active feed showed the same horror: mangled bodies, shredded armor, blood streaking across the walls. Some corpses were missing entire sections, as if something had eaten them. Jule's claws twitched against the console. His breathing was shallow. "What in the God's name is that thing?" one of his bridge officers whispered, eyes locked onto the feed. Jule's voice came out hoarse. "It's a mistake. A mistake we need to erase." He turned to his comms officer. "Seal the lower decks. Shut down every access point. Nothing gets up here." The officer nodded, hands flying across the controls. With a final press of a button, a deep hiss reverberated through the ship, blast doors locking in place. Jule exhaled slowly. "Good. Now." The lights flickered. The screens glitched. Then the ship's AI spoke, its normally monotone voice distorted by something unnatural. "Sealing decks, error, override detected, unauthorized access, control lost." Jule's blood ran cold. The beast was still moving. And it wasn't locked in. It was hunting. The slavers panic. The remaining warband members, more than 50 strong, gathered in the upper decks, weapons clenched in shaking hands. Some still had the bravado of warriors. Others? Terror had begun to set in. A brutish reptilian slaver, Torvak, clenched his plasma rifle. "This is ridiculous. It's just an animal. We outnumber it, we outgun it." A smaller, trembling alien next to him swallowed. "You saw the bodies, Torvak. It's not just some beast. It plays with its kills." A tense hush fell over the group. Torvak sneered, shoving the smaller alien aside. "Cowards. If it comes here, I'll get it myself." A voice spoke from the shadows. "You'll get your chance." Torvak barely had time to turn before something slammed into him. He screamed, briefly, before claws pierced his gut, lifting him off the ground. The gathered slavers erupted into chaos. Plasma fire lit up the hallway, flashing in all directions. But the thing had already moved. Torvak's corpse hit the floor with a wet thud. His face was gone. The human walks free. Amidst the carnage, in the now unsealed cargo hold, the human stepped into the open. He flexed his fingers, rolling his shoulders as if he had just woken up from a nap. The prisoners stared at him, horrified, awestruck. You planned this," one whispered. The human tilted his head. "Not planned." He smirked. "Just expected." The crimson-skinned alien swallowed hard. What do we do now?" The beast, drenched in blood, padded silently to the human's side. He placed a hand on its head. You do nothing." His smile widened. "I finish this." He turned toward the corridors, stepping into the darkness. The beast followed. The slaughter continues. Jule's desperation was mounting. He had lost too many. His remaining fighters set up barricades in the hallways, placing heavy weapons at every choke point. If the thing wanted to come, it would have to fight through hell. Then came the footsteps. Slow. Unhurried. Jule clenched his teeth. "Hold position. Wait for my order." The footsteps continued. Then, nothing. The silence stretched. The slavers shifted uneasily. Where had it gone? A sudden, sharp metallic screech tore through the air. Above them, the ceiling ripped open. A monstrous black shape dropped from the vents, right into the middle of the barricade. Before anyone could react, the screaming started. The beast ripped through the first slaver, jaws crushing his throat with a sickening crunch. It leapt from target to target, unstoppable, merciless. One of the gunners managed to fire. The plasma bolt grazed its hide. It snarled, not in pain, but in amusement. Then it was on him. Jaws snapped through his helmet, crushing bone, blood spraying across the barricade. Another slaver tried to run. The beast was faster. Claws severed his leg, dropping him instantly. He barely had time to scream before a massive paw slammed his skull into the floor. Jule watched, paralyzed. In seconds, his forces were reduced to corpses. Then he saw the human. Walking slowly through the carnage. Untouched. Unstoppable. Jule's chest tightened. This wasn't a man. This wasn't an animal. This was a force of nature. And it was here to kill him. The final stand. Jule fled. Through the winding corridors, past the mutilated remains of his crew. He needed to reach the escape pods. He reached the final corridor, heart hammering. The pod bay doors were just ahead. Then, a low growl. He stopped dead. The beast stepped from the shadows. Its eyes burned gold. Blood dripped from its fangs. Jule's trembling hand reached for his weapon. The human was behind him. Before Jula could react, cold steel pressed against his temple. The human's voice was calm. Too calm. Run. Jula's body seized. You wanted a hunt, right? The human murmured. The beast licked its lips. Jula's breath came in ragged gasps. You have 10 seconds. The gun clicked. Jula ran. The moment his foot hit the ground, the beast lunged. He screamed. The human watched, smiling. And the ship echoed with dying howls. The Bloodfang was a graveyard. The dim emergency lights flickered, casting long, erratic shadows on the blood-slick floors. The air was thick with the stench of burnt flesh, spilled entrails, and something worse, pure, unfiltered fear. The slavers were dead men walking. Jula sprinted down the last corridor, his breath coming in ragged gasps. He didn't look back. He didn't dare. Because he could hear it. The beast. Not running. Not charging. Just stalking. A slow, deliberate pacing behind him. Jula's heart pounded as he hurled himself through the doorway of the escape pod bay. He slammed his fist against the console, activating the launch sequence. A red warning flashed across the screen. Pods locked, override detected. Jula's stomach twisted. The screen flickered. Then, a new message appeared. You don't get to run. Jula's claws trembled. His entire body went cold. The human was watching. A choked whimper slipped from his throat. He turned around slowly, dreading what he'd see. The human stood in the doorway, arms crossed, casual as death itself. And beside him, the beast. Its massive frame was silhouetted in the dim light, golden eyes burning like twin infernos. Blood still dripped from its fangs. Jula could see Torvak's skull lodged between those teeth. His knees nearly buckled. The human tilted his head, his expression unreadable. You ran. Good. Jula barely managed to speak. Please, we can make a deal. The human didn't move. Jula swallowed, his words tumbling out in desperation. You want revenge, right? You want justice for what we've done? I can give you something better. The human finally blinked. Better? Jula nodded furiously, hope surging in his chest. We have connections. Big ones. I can give you names, locations. Slaver networks across 3 systems. Do you have any idea how many humans they have? How many you can save? The human exhaled. A long, slow breath. Jula's heart pounded. Then the human smiled. But there was no warmth in it. Let me tell you something. His voice was quiet. Too quiet. Jula stiffened. I'm not here to negotiate. Jula's mouth went dry. The human took a step forward. I don't give second chances. Another step. I don't make deals. Another. And I sure as hell don't let monsters like you live. Jula tried to reach for his weapon. The beast moved. Faster than anything that size should be able to. Jula didn't even see the strike, just felt razor-sharp claws tear into his leg. He screamed. His knee snapped backward, bones shattering. He collapsed, clutching his ruined limb, agony exploding through his body. The beast pressed a massive paw onto his chest, pinning him like a toy. Jula gasped, clawing weakly at its grip. Please. The human crouched beside him, voice still calm. You think you're the first slaver to beg. Jula sobbed. The human leaned closer. You all sound the same. Crying when the hunt turns against you. Jula whimpered. I don't wanna die. The human's eyes gleamed. Funny. I bet the humans in your cargo hold said the same thing. Jula trembled. He knew there was no escape. But his survival instincts wouldn't let him give up. So he tried one last thing. Why you need a ship, right? He gasped out. You can't fly this one alone. I can fly it for you. Help you get to safety. The human's lips curled. He leaned in until his mouth was right next to Jula's ear. And whispered 2 words. Start running. Jula's breath hitched. The beast lifted its paw. Jula's mind snapped. He scrambled to his feet, despite the crippling pain in his shattered leg, and ran. Ran like prey. The final hunt begins. Jula limped through the corridors, panic drowning out the agony in his leg. His slavers were dead. The security turrets? Disabled. The AI? Hijacked. There was nowhere left to hide. But still, he ran. Because behind him, hearing his every movement, the beast followed. It wasn't rushing. It wasn't pouncing. It was taking its time. Enjoying this. Jula sobbed. This wasn't a fight. This wasn't even revenge. This was sport. And he was just meat. He reached the central hallway, his last chance. A single turret was still online. Jula screamed, diving toward the console and slamming the emergency override. The turret whirred to life. It locked onto the approaching beast. Jula's face twisted into a manic grin. Yes. Kill it. The turret fired. A streak of blue plasma ripped through the air. And missed. Jula's blood froze. The beast had moved. It was on the ceiling. Crawling like a shadow, claws digging into the metal as it advanced. Jula turned to run. The human was there. The barrel of his sidearm pressed against Jula's stomach. The human's voice was ice. Good night. He pulled the trigger. A thunderous crack echoed through the ship. Jula staggered. He looked down, blinking in shock at the gaping hole in his gut. His knees buckled. The beast descended. Jula barely had time to scream before jaws snapped shut around his throat. A single, sickening crunch. Then, silence. A ship full of corpses. The humans stood over the bodies. The slavers, their leader, all gone. Blood pooled across the floor, reflecting the flickering red lights of the emergency systems. The beast exhaled, golden eyes glowing. The hunt was over. The human reached down, scratching behind its ear. Good girl. The beast rumbled in satisfaction. He turned toward the bridge. There was still work to do. The prisoners, the survivors, needed a way home. He stepped over Jula's corpse, not sparing it a second glance. Then, without a word, the human and his beast disappeared into the darkness. The Bloodfang remained adrift. A silent warning to anyone who thought humanity was weak. Because if they ever tried to steal another human again, they wouldn't just be hunted. They would be extinguished. The Bloodfang drifted in the cold void, silent as a tomb. Inside, the walls were painted with death. Bodies littered the corridors, slavers who had once strutted with arrogance, now nothing but torn carcasses. Blood pooled in the dim emergency lighting, reflecting the flickering red glow. The ship's AI was silent, hijacked and overridden. The security systems were offline, their turrets rendered useless. The slavers had come here thinking they were untouchable. They left as meat. The hunt was over. But the war was just beginning. A message to the galaxy. The human sat in the captain's chair, his fingers tapping against the armrest. The control panel in front of him flickered with data, a wealth of stolen information. Names. Locations. Asterisk. Supply chains. Other slaver ships. He exhaled slowly. This wasn't just a single victory. This was an opening salvo. His beast sat beside him, licking blood from its paws. Its golden eyes never stopped watching, never stopped hunting. With a few keystrokes, the human accessed the Bloodfang's primary communication system. The slavers had used this ship to broadcast their auctions, to spread fear across the black markets. He would use it for something else. A warning. He leaned forward and activated the ship's wide-range transmission. The Bloodfang would send this message across the galaxy. His voice was calm. Cold. Absolute. To every slaver listening, your time is up. He let the words settle. You thought humans were weak. You thought you could take us. That you could sell us, break us, kill us. And no one would come for you. A pause. Then, steel entered his voice. You were wrong. The beast growled low beside him. You took humans. We found you. We hunted you. We made you beg. And then? He smiled, though no one could see it. We erased you. His voice dropped to a whisper, sharp as a blade. And we're not stopping. He leaned back, letting the silence carry the weight of his words. Then, one last promise. Run. Run as far as you can. Because if you take one more human, we'll find you. And when we do, you will pray for mercy. He ended the transmission. For a moment, nothing but the hum of the ship filled the void. Then the beast let out a deep, satisfied growl. The hunt had just begun. The escape. The human turned back to the ship's controls. He had a mission, but first, he needed to get off this floating graveyard. The ship's engines were damaged beyond repair. He could pilot it, but it wouldn't get him far before it was stranded. No, he needed something smaller. Faster. His eyes flicked to the escape pods. He whistled once. The beast's ears perked up, and it immediately followed as he strode toward the lower decks. The emergency lights flickered as they walked. The ship's life support was failing. He didn't look back. The corpses of slavers lay scattered in the hallways. Some had been shot. Others ripped apart. Their weapons were still clutched in lifeless hands, but they had done nothing to save them. He stepped over Jula's mangled remains without a second glance. The beast paused only to sniff the body, then kept moving. When they reached the escape pod bay, the human wasted no time. He accessed the controls, overriding the final security measures. The door hissed open, revealing a small but functional craft. Perfect. He climbed inside. The beast followed, settling near the co-pilot seat. With a few quick motions, he activated the pod's launch sequence. The engines rumbled to life. The docking clamps released. And the escape pod detached. The human watched through the viewport as the Bloodfang shrunk in the distance. A ship of monsters. A ship of murderers. Now? Nothing more than a floating coffin. He let out a slow breath. And then, he pressed a single button. Total eradication. Deep within the Bloodfang, a timer reached 0. A small, inconspicuous device, one that the human had planted just minutes before, activated. The ship shuddered. And then, fire. A chain reaction ripped through the corridors, fuel lines bursting, ammunition stocks detonating. The bridge vanished in an explosion, plasma reactors overloaded. And in the darkness of space, the Bloodfang ceased to exist. The human watched the fireball expand from his escape pod's viewport. The ship's debris scattered, its wreckage tumbling into the void. No bodies would ever be recovered. No slaver would ever walk away. Total annihilation. The human leaned back in his seat. He let the silence settle. Then, he looked down at his beast. It met his gaze. Golden eyes still burning. He smirked. That went well. The beast let out a low rumbling noise, half growl, half contented sigh. The hunt was over. For now. A legend begins. Hours passed. The escape pod's navigation systems locked onto the nearest friendly outpost. A small, independent station, neutral ground. He could land there, regroup, and plan his next hunt. Because there would be a next hunt. The slavers thought this was an isolated attack. They were wrong. Word would spread. His message would reach every corner of the black markets. The slavers would whisper his name. They would fear the beast. And they would run. It wouldn't matter. Because no matter where they ran, the human and his beast would find them. And when they did, the galaxy would learn. Humanity was not prey. Humanity was not weak. Humanity was the apex predator. And the hunt was just getting started.